If you're a man in your 20s and 30s, this is the most important video that you're ever going to watch, hands down, because today I'm going to talk about female validation and how every man falls in this kind of a trap. Every man between the age of 20s and 30s, even guys who are up to 40s, would sometimes fall in the trap of the female validation. And what happens when you fall in the trap of female validation? You get stuck on a girl years and years, you get stuck in friend zone, you get stuck in a loop where the girl just gives you some sort of validation to keep you in the loop, to keep you attracted, to keep you hooked, and you're just hoping that someday you're gonna magically be together. And that day never comes. And a lot of men end up losing their self-respect, their self-identity, their self-esteem. Why? Just because they got stuck in this trap, the trap of female validation. Hello bro, and welcome back to the channel. This is Aunav, and I've been a dating coach for the past decade, helping men like yourself get into a fulfilling relationship that you deserve. So if you're single, consider clicking the subscribe button. So today we're going to talk about female validation and how it's a trap that every man should avoid. Now you need to understand, when we talk about female validation, a lot of men have been completely destroyed because they're constantly chasing that external validation. Now what is external validation? External validation is when your self-worth economy is controlled by the opinions of others. Now understand this carefully. When your own identity is based on what you think others think about you and what others' opinions are about you. Now, when that happens, it's called external validation. But when it happens, especially in the case of women, it's a dopamine-driven loop. And this makes you feel good only when you get the approval, you get the attention, or you get recognition. Now, the problem with this is this creates a validation dependency. And once you're hooked, you can be easily controlled emotionally and mentally. Now, you might be thinking, hey man, I'm completely free of external validation. I don't care what she thinks about me. But you need to understand, when you're out in the field, when you're approaching a girl, and this especially happened when I was learning about social skills, about approaching, is when I would approach a girl and she would give me bad reactions, my state, my emotional state would completely drop. And I would be like, oh, I cannot do more approaches because, I did an approach, got rejected, and it completely killed my state. Now, if you're a beginner, a lot of beginners have this problem, and this is what I'm seeing in the coaching these days. A lot of people, when they start out, they're thinking, okay, I'm doing this to get the woman. I'm learning these tricks, these techniques to get the woman. But what happens is when they go and they do the approaches and they get rejected, there's so much focus on the woman that their state completely crashes. So how do you figure out whether you're controlled by external validation or not? Now, some common forms of external validation seeking is text check anxiety. Now, this happens with a lot of people. It used to happen with me as well initially. And what is this? Is basically you're anxious about her texting you back. You're anxious about her reply. And funny thing is, when people join the coaching, they're getting 5-10 matches in a month. But when we create their online dating profiles, they get 100-200 matches in a month. Now with that, you cannot have that text check anxiety. So a lot of it comes down to having scarcity in your dating life. If you're just completely focused on one girl and all your attention is on that one girl, you give her so much value that you're going to have that anxiety no matter what. So first thing, if you want to come over text check anxiety, is text more women. Get more women into your life. Now, the second common form of external validation is social media validation loop. Now, I've dated a lot of influencers. I've dated a lot of models. And one thing I found out, this actually is worse in women, is they're constantly checking who's checking out their stories. Maybe they have like 30,000 followers. Maybe they have like 500K followers. It doesn't matter. They would constantly be checking out how many people are checking my stories, how many people like my post, how many people comment. Now, for you, this might mean you meet a girl through online dating. Maybe you meet a girl in a bar. और उसके बाद you're constantly checking your likes, you're constantly checking your comments, you're constantly checking your DMs, and you're responding to all of her stories. Now, I would recommend strongly unfollow each and every girl that you were probably trying on and she's not responding to you, or she's not. My recommendation to you would be unfollow each and every girl you had a romantic interest in and she's not replying to you or she's not responding to you, but she's just over there as a follower. If you want to get out of the social media validation loop, especially from female validation, then what you need to do is unfollow all of them who are not responding to you, who are taking your time, who are taking your space, because that is very important. Now with this, I would also say that if you're a guy who's just talking to 3 girls, then it's going to be extremely tough for you because those are the 3 people in your Instagram following list. But if you're a guy who's actively focused on his life, going out, doing approaches, if you're a guy who's working on his dating life, then this shouldn't be hard. And this is something that I do. Like if I ask a girl out and she's not responding, she's not showing the interest level, there's no point of following her. I would strictly unfollow her. This is a rule that I live by in my own dating life. I strongly recommend you follow this as well. Now, the next form of external validation is the nice guy syndrome. अगर तुम एक लड़की से बात कर रहे हो, and if you're a guy who's just being nice, saying what she wants to hear, not what you actually think, then you have the nice guy syndrome. Now, I had this one client recently, he was pretty good with women, and his persona was pretty badass. But he met this extremely beautiful girl in a nightclub. He got a number, couldn't do much over there because she was with her friends, went back home and started texting her the next day. The next day, the girl says something like, "Hey, I'm feeling a little sick. Can we talk tomorrow?" Now, the guy sends her a paragraph of text and texts her that I would like to help you out. And he was being extremely caring. But was it his natural instinct? Not really, because he was just doing that for the girl so that the girl actually likes him. But the point was that if his best friend was sick, he wouldn't even give a shit. So this was not his natural persona. So this is something that you wouldn't do naturally. You're just doing it to get the girl. Stop that shit right now, because this is the nice guy syndrome. Now, I've made a video on bad boy traits that you need to have, and you don't need to shift your personality from a nice guy to a bad boy. It doesn't mean that you need to be bad with women. It just means that you need to stop the things that you're doing just to make the woman like you. I've made that video. I'll add a link over here, so check it out. Now, the next thing is overinvestment. Now, I have a very good story with overinvestment. Now, once you start getting female validation, you get stuck in a loop. You want more and more of that, and because of that, you tend to overinvest. So back in the day when I was in Singapore, I was with my friend and we were talking to two hot Russian models, and this guy was like, "Hey man, let's take them to the room." And I'm like, "Hey man, listen, I live with like 6 people in one house. I'm not sure if my room is the best spot." He's like, "Why don't we book a hotel?" I'm like, "All right, you can go ahead. I don't have that budget to book a hotel." So this guy booked Marina Bay Sands. I think that time it was like $700 a room. So we went inside the room and this guy's like, "Hey man, why don't we get some champagne for them?" I'm like, "Listen, bro, I'm at a student's budget. I don't want to do that shit. Let's just have the conversation." Now the girl starts giving him good reaction. They're flirting, they're talking. I'm hitting it off with one girl. Sadly, his girl is being a little bit more reserved. Now this guy was like, "Hey, why don't we order some more champagne?" I was like, "Listen, I was not up for the first one. I'm not up for the second one." But this guy, because he got some good reactions from her, because the girl was flirting with him, he was like, "I need to double down on my investment. I cannot lose that." So now he's already invested for the hotel room. He's already invested for the bottle of champagne. Probably like $1,200 is gone. Now he wants to buy another $500 bottle of champagne just for the girls. And the girl is not sort of giving him good reactions. I mean, she's flirting with him, but the moment he's making a move, she's just slightly rejecting that. Now for me, it's going extremely well with the girl I was sitting with. But for him, he has a lot of thoughts in his head. I've spent $700 for the room. I've spent $500 for one bottle of champagne. Next bottle of champagne comes, I'm $2,000 in. Now he needs to protect that investment of $2,000. Plus the girl knows exactly how to create that loop of external validation. And because of that, this guy's overinvesting. Now, 3 a.m. he's like, "Hey man, let's order a third bottle of champagne." I'm like, "Listen bro, what are you gonna do? If she drinks this, she's gonna probably be drunk. I have to leave immediately because this is going to be a bad scene. You don't want to enter a bad scene just because you want to get the girls drunk and you want to hook up with them." The guy's like, "No man, I've already invested so much." I was like, "Listen, you need to stop right now. Nothing is going to happen." Now, what happened with me was I was talking to that girl, I was hitting it off. So I was like, "Okay, let's leave for my place." Ended up leaving with her friend to my place. And the other girl was with my friend. And I thought, okay, these guys probably going to hook up or this girl's going to leave home. The guy ordered the third bottle of champagne, which I was completely against. The girl was visibly drunk. So I made a move with my girl. I went to my place. But this guy was sitting with this girl for another 2 hours trying to convince her or trying to hook up with her, trying to persuade her to go to his room. But this girl was smart as fuck. This girl said, "Hey, listen, I had a great night. I would love to see you again. Let's take things slow." Next thing you know, he takes her number, she leaves, never texts back. This is what happens when you do overinvestment, because you lose a lot of value. Now you need to understand, why does this all happen? Why do men overinvest? Why do men have the nice guy syndrome? Why do we have social media validation loop? Why do we have text check anxiety? All of this happens because of intermittent reinforcement trap. Now let me explain it to you. The dopamine hit from occasional female validation makes you crave it more. This is something that you need to understand about emotions. If something is uplifting your emotions, if something is giving you positive emotions, you're going to want it more and more. Because I think it's very strong. I think female validation is more stronger than any drug available in this world. But the worst part about this is women intrinsically know about this. That's why they reward you sporadically so that you chase them, you keep on chasing them. If you've been in a situation where you just got to know a girl and she's texting you sometimes and she's playing hot and cold, maybe she's over-investing sometimes and she's completely not investing sometimes. This is because she knows that you're in the validation loop. And once you are in the validation loop, she'll keep on making you chase more and more, even if she's looking for other potential partners or even if she has a potential partner. So make sure that you don't get stuck in this validation loop. Now, I want to also share an actionable masculine principle that you can use today to get out of this validation loop, and it's called detachment rewire. Now you need to set daily personal goals, daily personal achievements that has nothing to do with external validation and everything to do with you. Whether it's working on your fitness, skill improvement, financial win. You need to track all those things and become your own personal cheerleader. So do not depend on external female validation, but depend on validation that you get from working on these things. Now, every time you feel the urge to seek validation, shift focus to an internal win. That is very important because that is going to help you come out of the loop of female validation. Now, let me tell you about why seeking female validation is a psychological trap. Now, seeking female validation signals low status. It signals that you're a needy guy, you're a desperate guy. That's called the neediness effect. Now, women don't respect men who need their approval to feel worthy. Automatically your value goes down. If she thinks that she has a control over your emotions, if he feels कि ये बंदा खुश नहीं रह सकता मेरे बिना, automatically your value is going down. The stronger your frame is, the stronger your attraction will be. The weaker your frame is, the weaker your attraction will be. That means if you have a weaker frame, if you're always chasing her for positive emotions, that attraction is going to be super weak. She's going to lose interest. She's going to understand that this is a guy whose reservoir of positive emotions is me. And if I don't give him the reactions that he's expecting, then the state is going to crash. So she will hold more power in the social dynamic. That's very important to understand. Now you need to understand about the validation paradox. The more validation you seek, the less attractive you become. Remember this, guys, the more validation you seek from a woman, the less attractive you are for her. Because women, they love a man who exudes commanding influence, not a man who begs for their attention. Now, apart from this, what does female validation do? It promotes and encourages emotional slavery, the approval addiction. If you don't get her approval, you're not going to be at a good emotional state. Now, if her words dictate your emotions, she controls your reality. And this is very important, especially for you guys who are going out, approaching girls and you're thinking, why is it not working for me? Why can't you do another approach after you've been rejected? Now, I got brutally rejected once and I was with a client. I was in a bar and I just approached this girl and she's like, fuck off, can't you see I'm busy? And the client is like, hey man, I didn't know that you would get rejected. And I was approaching another girl right after I got rejected. So he was like, hey, I don't want to learn the skill of cold approach. I don't want to learn this. I want to learn how have you built such a thick muscle that you don't even pay any attention to her. You're just approaching the next girl. And I just went up to her next girl and I'm like, did you see? She just broke my heart. Right? That was my approach. Now, a lot of it comes down to practice and becoming number with this. What I mean is the more you practice, the more I practiced, the more number I became to rejections. And soon I reached a point, it was not soon, I think it was after like 50, 60,000 approaches, I reached a point where it didn't affect me at all. It didn't impact me at all. No rejection could impact me because I also zoned in on my own true value, and that's very important. Now, it creates emotional slavery and this makes you reactive, not directive. Now, what does that mean? That means once you start becoming reactive to a woman, if you're reacting to whatever she's throwing at you, automatically she's going to lose a lot of attraction. She's not going to be attracted to you because you're not that desired anymore. Because you're a guy who's reacting to her rather than having a mission and a purpose. So be directive rather than being reactive. I see this problem with a lot of men going out there learning the skill of cold approach because you think that these are some skills and tactics that I will learn to get the girl. But the reality is this makes you a prize. It's not to get the girl, but it's to become your own better version. Put all your focus away from the girl in your own self. And I've been saying that since a long time, guys. Now, an actionable masculine principle that I use for my own life in this is self-worth recalibration. Every time I seek approval, every time I seek external validation, I hit a pause button and I see, if no one could see this, would I still be doing it? Now, this can be a small thing like you're going out to a bar with your friends and you're buying drinks for them. This can be a small thing like you are going out to approach a girl and you're getting rejected, and because of that, you're not doing any more approaches. And this can also be you're talking to a girl, things are going good, it didn't go where it had to go, and because of that, you're like, hey, listen, I'm just done with talking to women. I'm just done approaching women. A lot of guys are in that state currently, and this is where, the red pill psychology sort of came into play because a lot of men were like butthurt that, oh, I'm not able to approach women, so might as well judge them, might as well devalue them. And because of this, what happens is you'll not be able to get into a suitable relationship. So make sure that you use the self-worth recalibration to your own advantage. You need to calibrate every moment when you're seeking that external validation, when you're doing something that you really don't like. I need to see why are you actually doing that. Now, if the answer is no, you're chasing approval, not purpose. If the answer to the thing that you're doing, to the activity that you're doing is no, that you don't want to do it, you're probably chasing an approval. Now, I'll tell you one small story with this. Now, I was dating this girl for like 3.5 years and she really liked pottery. She really liked to go, there was this place right next to my place and she would like to go over there, do some pottery. For a year, I put up with that shit. For a year, I was like, okay, I have to be supportive in whatever she likes. And I was cancelling my own plans just to go there, sit, get my hands dirty. And that was a thing that I did not like at all. I was not invested at all. I was dreading that moment that Sunday used to come and I was like 1 hour wasted. So towards the end of the day, I realized that this is not something that I want to do in my life. So there's a strict no for me to pottery. So I've also created a 5-step system that is going to help you build internal validation. Step 1, rewire all your external validation to internal validation. Replace dopamine from female approval into dopamine from self-improvement. Now this can be working out, this can be improving your knowledge base, this can be improving your financials. Set goals for that. Once you complete those goals, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel an internal validation. Now step 2 is master social command presence. Walk, speak and move as if you already have that validation because you do from your own self. Now this is very important because you're the only person who can actually impact and change your life. So your own true validation should matter to you more than external validation. So stop seeking energy from interactions and start projecting that energy instead. Now there's a small psychological principle I use when I'm talking to women, and this principle can actually change the way you talk to women. Instead of qualifying your own self, when you're ever talking to a girl, when you're talking to a person that you're interested in, rather than qualifying your own self like, hey, I did this, I did that, I've done so much in my life, rather than qualifying your own self, try to get her to qualify to you. Why is she good enough for you? So try to ask her, what else is so interesting about you? With this, you will see that women would start qualifying for you, and once they start qualifying for you, it's game over. It's game in your court basically. What that means is once they start qualifying, they will automatically start chasing. So do not qualify for any girl, and this is a problem I see with the richest of the rich guys. Especially the rich guys have this problem. If you're a guy who has a set business, or if you're a guy who has a set 6 to 7 figure job, what happens is you like, oh, I'm better than all these men she's talking to. Let me logically try to convince her why I'm the best option. Once you do that, it's gone. The attraction is completely gone because once you start convincing the woman logically, there's nothing that can be more needy than that. Now, step 3 is building an internal scoreboard, your framework metric. Track wins that have nothing to do with women. Now, step 3 is building an internal scoreboard, and this is what I make each one of my clients do, which is building a scoreboard which has nothing to do with external validation. Like how I was talking about tracking your small wins, whether it's your financial win, whether it's your relationship win, whether it's your, tracking your small wins, whether it's working out for you, whether it's your knowledge base, whether it's your financials. Tracking all of those things and setting up weekly challenges, and once you complete those weekly challenges, you will be getting internal hits of validation. And that is what is required once you want to jump off this hamster wheel of external validation. So make sure that you're tracking small wins and you're your own cheerleader, because when you start doing approaches, and this was my story back in the day, when I was 17, I was in Singapore, मैंने पहली बार approaches करना शुरू किया था, and what happened over there was that I was doing approaches and I was getting rejected left, right and center. I was getting rejected for the first 3 months, but the only way I could pull through that was internal validation. Even if I would get rejected, I would just walk up to a girl, I would approach her, I would get completely blown off, but I would come back and I would just pat myself on the back and say, who has the balls to do that? Now that's exactly what you need to do once you start learning about approaching, because guys, being honest, approaching can be a little bit harsh if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, it can be a little bit harsh. Initially, it's a numbers game, but the more you do, the better you get. And then the probability really shoots up for you to attract any woman that you want. So step 4 is set boundaries, filter low energy people. It's very important because your circle shapes your mindset. Stop surrounding yourself with people who reinforce approval seeking. If your friends are approval seeking, you're going to be approval seeking, because your friends' habits are definitely going to influence you. So it really matters who are you hanging out with. The top 5 people in your group will dictate what kind of behaviors and habits you have. Apart from that, women actually respect a man who says no. If you're a guy who's always a yes man to women, try saying no sometimes. Try cancelling a plan. Try flaking on her once if you have a little bit of an abundance. Now you'll realize it signals high value self-perception that this guy is not a yes man. He's not going to be okay with whatever I want to do. Now in the society, worst part is 99% of the guys, 99% of the men out there are yes men. If they find a beautiful woman, they would change their life direction. They would do anything just to get her approval. And that's what I call a yes man. So do not be a yes man. Do not just strictly start saying no to everything, but you got to balance it, and you got to be socially calibrated. You got to do things that you want, and you got to say no to those things that you actually don't want. Another masculine principle that I follow is no justification rule, which basically means that if I create a healthy boundary, for example, boundary can be no girls smoke in my car, no persons enter my studio without taking off their shoes. Now, if I have a boundary, I don't need to explain that. That's a rule that I follow. It's an actionable masculine principle that you can follow today to actually sort of set boundaries that filters low energy people. You need to do that because it's very important, and these rules should not be justified. The moment you start justifying your boundaries, your rules, you again lose value. Step 5 is you need to adopt a mentality that I am enough. Because true masculine energy comes from an unshakable self-belief. So if you don't have an unshakable self-belief, the woman is going to see that. And this can be in the conversations when you're talking to a girl and you're not very certain about what you're saying. Or this can be in your decisions. If you've made a decision but you're not 100% sure about that decision, she can see that you're uncertain. And that shows her that there's holes in your confidence. You're not truly confident. You don't believe what you're saying. And if you don't believe what you say, guess what? No woman is going to believe what you're saying. So what that means is you need to stop looking for external validation. You need to act as if you're already validated. Now, this also goes in approaching. When you're approaching a girl, assume the approach and the open has been successful. Assume the conversation has been started. And then act based on the principle that you've already been validated. She's already giving you the right responses. Now, once you act like that, you'll realize that girls would automatically get super comfortable with you. An actionable masculine principle that I want you to follow, and I'm going to follow with you, is a 90-day challenge, the 3 months no validation seeking challenge. And this is a challenge that I'm taking for my social freedom, my financial freedom, and my dating freedom. And I'm going to do it alongside you so you can also aim for those things. Now, we do have a community where there are 1,000 people who are going to be taking this challenge with me, and all of you are going to be accountable to me. So only if you're dedicated, only if you're a person who wants to be the top 1%, click the link below, join the mastermind community, and become a part of high net worth individuals who are actually focused on working on their dating and their social life. Now, if you follow all of this information that I've just given you, I'm 100% sure you'll be free of the validation loop. Now, how do you figure out whether you're free of the validation loop or not? The first thing that you're going to see is that you're going to start acting on your values rather than external purpose, rather than external opinions, external things that people say. You're not going to be focused on that. Second thing is you're going to stop chasing those likes. You're going to stop chasing those messages. You're going to stop chasing those reactions from women. Another thing that I felt in my journey was I was able to walk away from any situation that was not aligned with my values, my traits, or which was not serving me well. Not because I wanted to hurt other people, but because it really did not align with me and I was not so much of a people's pleaser anymore. And once you start doing all of this, you will see an internal shift that people start seeking validation from you. Now, it's not you anymore who's seeking validation from people. You're acting on your own accord, from your own mission, from your own values and traits. But people start seeking validation from you because you're so calm. That also means that people will start seeking your attention, and it would be at a whole different level. But all of this, guys, it's not easy. It's something that has to be done over time. So let me know in the comment section what you think about this. And if there's any other video that you want me to cover, any other in-depth breakdown, in-depth analysis that you want me to do, key it down in the comment section. I'll make sure to read it.